My next point is about the physics a little bit. It's about duduk, reed and drone combination. And the point is that the more wide open are the lips of your reed, the more easy is to play halftones. It is harder, of course, for your breath, and it is challenging for the breath, very demanding. I know if you open your reed more, not only you who seeks a comfortable position for playing, but it also, the reed itself is also a living being, and it also has a comfortable position for it to be played and to have a good sound, full sound, and to comfortably play halftones on it. The more you squeeze the lips of the reed, the more narrow is this distance, the more difficult is to play halftones, because if the distance here is very narrow, then you have to open your finger just very, very little. If it is narrow, you open the finger less. If it is more open, you open the finger more. And we are tending all to open the finger more. That's why. Squeezing down a little bit the reed. You see, I'm opening less of this hole. And this is the difficulty. Maybe you're also having a hard reed and you cannot afford yourself to play with more wide open lips of the reed. But you have to compromise here. You have to find your balance. This is an essential thing. If you open it more, probably it will not match anymore with the drone, but then you have to change something about the pitch of the drone. I told you about being relaxed and keeping your fingers closer to the playing holes. Do you understand why? It is, if your fingers are relaxed and closer to playing holes, you are able to approach halftones in a softer way. This is what they need. They need a gentle approach, a soft approach. As beginners, we tend to be too aggressive approaching halftones. We want them too much. So it's this too much wanting and approaching them in a like alpha male, almost aggressive like way doesn't work with halftones. They need the opposite approach, kind of a feminine approach, let's say like this, in this mystical language of energies. When your fingers are relaxed and you are closer here, then your work on halftones becomes a minimal work. You need really a minimum movement of your fingers, letting them happen almost. But when I'm showing you, sometimes I will be doing it like too obvious, so that you can see it only. On your initial stages of halftones practice, you could play them quieter than full tones. What we try, of course, is to play them on the same volume level as full tones. And this is normal. This is how it should be. Basically, you must be able to do that. In some melodies, they're by default, they must be quieter, but in many melodies, they must be on the same volume level. And to bring them to the same volume level, we have to give more air, to increase the air pressure you are giving to the reed. The air is coming out from a half hole, so you have to press more air. But on initial stages, when your finger is still not stable enough keeping this halftone position, the air which comes from underneath of this hole, because you know that when you play any note, the air comes from the next open hole. And here, when we play halftone, it comes from underneath the same hole. And this airflow, air pressure, just pushes your finger upwards, which unfortunately makes it change its position if you are still learning. So this air pressure, especially if you try to bring it to the same volume level, you give more air pressure, this air pressure moves the finger upwards and you are again sharper. That's why I recommend you on initial stages to give a same air pressure on halftones as on the full tones. We will be taking a real scale, not something made up, that you can make up from some other uncommon finger position, uncommon keynote, but we will take a real one, a very common one. We will be playing many short notes, because long notes on halftones is an advanced thing. First, you have to play many short notes so that you lose this fear of halftones. And then later you can play longer notes, and even with vibrato. Doing vibrato on halftones is more difficult than on full tones. We can start by playing the note of G here. It's the simplest one, fortunately, and you can practice it from the most simple scales, like B minor scale on duduk. If you want to go a little bit more advanced, you can also practice it in shur. In shur we also have it. In shustar we also have it. If you cannot hear it properly, I recommend you to play the drone in B and use also the tuner. And then take a very simple melody, something very basic, in the scale of B minor, like dleyaman, achin shlave, yeraz, these three things. You will find them in my tutorials on open YouTube channel, either on English ones or Russian ones. In the description to this video, I will be mentioning all of those compositions, melodies, I am recommending here for any scale. A classic advice how to open this halftone is open it vertically in this direction. Don't do it like this, you see, sidewards, or like this, just go vertically, like that. With metronome it doesn't feel that boring to play exercises. Metronome is set on 105. As you remember, many repetitions of short notes. This pattern, you are starting like that, and finishing on halftone. And you can add one lower note and one upper note. Look. Or you can play it from one note lower. An advanced thing, if you already can play a bit of ornaments, you can do like this. The next advanced thing that I can show you here already now is playing long notes and with vibrato. For this you can actually set your drone on the same halftone and try to match it with the drone. If you want to practice some melody where the drone is on G, take the melody which is called surp surp. Now we will move to the halftone, the note of C with the middle finger. This is the most common after the note of G. Actually, the simplicity of the note of G of this halftone is because it is so much common in so many melodies. In B minor, in Schuh star, and even F sharp. From here, we play so many of those G notes, and that's why our finger also gets used. And this note is simpler. Not only because of this, it's also because of the distance which your finger moves. On this halftone, the distance is the biggest. On all other halftones, this distance, how much we are open the finger, is less than here. That's why it's also simpler, you see. And the thumb is more obedient and more feeling what is going on underneath on the playing hole, when it touches the playing hole. It just feels better than other fingers. So you see how many reasons this halftone is simpler. And the C is not that simple, and you already know it. The distance we have to move our finger is less than on G. I have chosen to do like this, starting from G and then only B, because in the scale of Schuh, which is the most common and the simplest scale where we use this finger, and we have both notes. We have the note of C and the note of G here. For the note of C, we need to play the drone on B. As I told you before, the approach is very soft, minimal work of fingers, tender and gentle. You see, my movement is minimalistic. You can take also this exercise in Armenian music, you hear it a lot. Da 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 da. We have it here a lot, but you also can do it here. Like this. But if you do it in a minimalistic way, it would be looking like this. My movement was a bit vertical here. This pattern you already know from the previous halftone. Then you can also practice 3 notes, 4 notes sequences and other patterns as well. Now we will be playing the full scale of Schuh without going to position 4 and 4, only using our 3 and 2 and 3 and 3 position. We start with key note of B, just playing the scale up and down. It's a good scale because it has 2 halftones. When we go position 4 and 4, we will be having 3 halftones because one goes with the little finger, but now we're just playing these 2. And here we can practice something else. Just 3 note sequences, nothing special. 4 notes. this pattern is good also. So I've reached the B of the upper octave. Every time I moved one note higher, one note up, then going down, then 2 notes up, then going down, and 3 notes up until I reached the upper B. And from the upper B we do the same. We always come to the upper B back, going down 1 note, going back to upper B, going 2 notes down, then back, then 3 notes down, until we have reached the B of the lower octave. And like this you can practice. This exercise is also good for training your lips, because when you reach the upper B and then you have to go always come back to this upper B, it's a great thing because it will train your lips a lot. You will train this upper B, which is problematic for many even advanced players. So I reached the B of the lower octave and I can start doing it again. About melodies, I would recommend to take the melody called Aravot Luso. This is one of my most favorite melodies in Shur. Basically, the scale of Shur is inviting very much to play improvisations and ornaments within it. That's why it's not easy to find a very simple melody in Shur, because all of them are full of ornaments. But this Aravot Luso, there are also versions, different versions of it, and in one of the versions, Divan Gasparyan would play it in a little bit simpler variation with not so many ornaments. There are ornaments, but not that many. And I had a lesson in my Russian speaking videos about this Aravot Luso. There were 2 versions in it, as I remember. One from Divan Gasparyan, the first one in the video, a simpler one, and then the second one was with more ornaments. I think for this level of your practice you can take that first one, the version of Divan Gasparyan, and try to follow. I'm very sorry, I think that video was made number of years ago, and at that time I did not make any subtitles, so it's just in Russian, but I guess you are able to figure it out because I'm showing it basically step by step. I want to add a couple of words about the giving more space to a halftone, which I've spoken before. You inflate here, this part of the throat, like in the case of a frog, it goes inflated. Like when the frog goes like quack, 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 it goes like, you know, you probably saw it in cartoons. You inflate it here from both sides, and the upper palates, this part of behind the upper teeth here, this is called hard palate, and what is behind the hard palate is a soft palate. So both of those palates you try to bring up, sort of it goes from both sides inside of your mouth, it goes like this. Try to make this, you know, when you want to sleep, you're like, you know, this, and everything inside goes to all directions. So what we need here is this kind of feeling. All those palettes, what I'm talking about now in this part, they automatically go up and down. This is what you need to make here as well. And when you do it, inflating here, automatically your lower jaw goes a bit down, like this way. And you can also think in the mind that the upper palate going upwards here. Now moving to this half tone, which is the note of D sharp or E flat. In music they mostly say E flat instead of D sharp. There is not so much to say about it because there are not really difficult techniques, not vertical and horizontal. It goes all the time, it goes in the diagonal direction like that. And don't be afraid to play it flat, really like flatter, because there are scales. For example, Charga scale, I talked about this before, and the composition we learned on my YouTube channel was Dunel Gelhen. This note is quite simple, I would say. This is the simplest one after the note of G. Here it just goes, in most cases it goes automatically. This one, the note of C, is much more difficult than this one. And the best scale, of course, here is to practice Shushtar. In this scale, immediately in the position 3 and 3, we have 3 half tones. Note of C, note of D sharp, and note of G. Practice this using those exercises I taught you before. All of them are good, and even something else you can add here, and those are intervals. Before we didn't play intervals because not so many half tones were included, but now it's very nice to do it. You see, my fingers are still here. I'm shading this half tone, so I'm not taking my fingers away. Anyway, you don't have to take this finger away, almost never. In the position 3 and 3, you don't take it ever from here. It just stays here, but here we can shade it more. I'm not completely closing the 2 lower notes here. It's just I'm hanging strongly above them, very closely. That was the simplest interval, where we skipped one note only, starting from B and going from B here and going to D sharp here straight away. And going down. Also skip 2 notes or 3 notes, doesn't matter. In Shushtar you can learn melodies like Sirt im Sazani, simple one, then Horovel, and Ola Raezo. Pattern you already know, and this exercise of coming back always to the same key note, to the lower key note, to the upper key note. Like this, coming up and then down. advanced thing, you can practice a long note on this one, and then set the drone on D sharp, and then try to play it. Giving more space, as I said, here and upper palate.